Hey everyone, this is GosuDad, and welcome to my first cast of a 2 vs 2 Paramount and Ethereal versus Salazo and Katsukilla, ZZvZZ versus ZZvZZ on Scorched Haven. Hey everyone, this is GosuDad, and welcome to my very first 2 vs 2 ZZvZZ versus ZZvZZ on Scorched Haven 4-player map, 2 vs 2 map. Up here in the upper left-hand corner, player 1 in the red is Paramount. And in the lower left-hand corner, player 2 is Ethereal. He's the guy who sent this replay to me. In the lower right-hand corner is Salazo, playing Zerg in the teal. In the upper right-hand corner is Katsukilla, playing Zerg in the purple. So ZZvZZ versus ZZvZZ, 2 vs 2, a first for GosuDad here. And this is going to be interesting. Some good practice for when I cast 2 vs 2 for the 2 vs 2 games from the CSL. Looks like Paramount going for that extractor trick, and I am guessing that Ethereal has done the same. Kind of interesting 2 vs 2. You don't get to see the same nameplates up here. You also don't get to see all of the players' resources, causing the caster to have to zip around the map. Looks like Katsukilla going for an early spawning pool. I'm sorry, not Katsukilla, that's Salazo. Katsukilla also going for an early spawning pool, unlike Ethereal and Paramount, who have gone instead for looking like standard Zerg Plague up to 14 supply for Paramount. Not seeing a... looks like he's saving up for an expansion. And Ethereal going for the same thing. Now this is going to be a very risky play on their part, because in a 2 vs 2 it's all about combining your 2 armies together. At least that's what my friend Day 9 says. Actually, he's not my friend, but he's a guy whose casts I listen to occasionally. So according to Day 9, 2 vs 2 comes down to the ability for both players, the ability for a particular team to pull their units together into a single mass. So unlike 1 vs 1, where it's a single army against a single army, and there's a real balance to economy and army building in the early game, in a 2 vs 2 it's all about how the 2 players can pull their army together. So there's a couple of different strategies. There's one where the players... now it's interesting, Katsukilla is bringing a drone on the attack. I'm thinking he's going to try to put down a spine crawler in Paramount's base. So one of the advantages of playing in a Zerg versus Zerg matchup, or in this case ZZvZZ versus ZZvZZ, is that you can build spine crawlers in your opponent's main because your opponent already has creep inside their main. So these Zerglings trying to attack Paramount, trying to rally his drones back to the mineral line, which causes them to stack on top of each other. So when they turn around and attack, they're stacked and are able to hit a bunch of a Zergling with multiple drones at the same time, because you can see that when they're attacking on an individual basis, they have to... only one drone can attack at a time. But when they are bunched up due to the mineral stacking ability, they're able to do more damage. Now look here, the Queen coming out, going to be able to hold this off, and those drones pulled out. Unfortunately, I can't see the... I can't see my favorite little flyovers like I do in 2 vs 2. Both both Zerg opponents Salazo and Katsukilla going straight for Paramount. Paramount has left the game, and all the money is now going to Ethereal. Perhaps this explains why he submitted this game. If he's able to pull this off, this is just crazy. So these Zerglings from both Salazo and Katsukilla breaking Paramount down. I mean, Paramount's down basically to nothing. He has no more resources. It's all going to be up to Ethereal. Can he hold off this defense? He's got 4 Zerglings and 2 spine crawlers against looks like about 10 Zerglings. Of course, these Zerglings are slightly damaged, pushing up the hit points. We can see that they're being held off, and Ethereal, with all the resources, going back to the production tab, with all the resources saved given to him by Paramount, is able to build a bunch of Zerglings in response. More Zerglings coming in from Salazo, and looks like Ethereal able to hold this off. Now Katsukilla trying to bring in his spine crawler from Paramount's base. I'm assuming that's from Paramount's base, to try to hit Ethereal, but he didn't quite make it to the creep and got surrounded by Ethereal's Zerglings. A little bit of Zergling, not a little bit, a lot of Zergling battling back and forth between these 2 players. As long as Ethereal can keep kiting these Zerglings back to his 2 spine crawlers, he should be able to win those battles. So now, wow, very, very interesting. Looks like a bunch of Banelings being built by Ethereal back in his main, and using his Queen to continue up that production. Now looking back at the base of Salazo, we see his Queen is starting on that production, and he's building a Roach Warren And katsukilla is still... Looks like he has not built a Roach Warren yet. I don't see a lot coming out from him. Just a couple of Overlords hanging out, and Zerglings going back to katsukilla's base. Now, at this point, Ethereal is kind of put in this funny situation. So, as I was mentioning before, as I was trying to mention before I got interrupted by the craziness of this game, is that the challenge of 2v2 is how to take your two armies and put them together or use them in tandem. So now Ethereal has come across the very strange position where his opponent left early in the game, and that allows him to control his army as one. So he's kind of got those two armies pushed together. Now, of course, he doesn't benefit from the dual macro of having two players at once, and in fact, it's actually even hard to control the user interface in this case. So now he's going to be able to attack this early expansion by Salazo with these Banelings. Banelings going to have to be very careful. The Banelings are going to be used to defend against these Zerglings from katsukilla, and so Ethereal should be able to take down this extra hatch by itself. That was kind of a waste of a Baneling there. Oh, is he going to try to get more than... Oh, he's going to try to capture a couple of Zerglings with this Baneling. This Baneling chasing these Zerglings back away. That gives Ethereal the ability to attack... Salazo by himself. So now Ethereal going into Salazo's main. So again, you saw there, right what happened there is Ethereal essentially had the resources from two players put together. He was able to focus on one player at a time, which puts it back to 1 versus 1 base. These drones are put on hold position. I'm not sure why they're not mining. Zergling versus Zergling battle again here. I think Ethereal's going to come out on top of things. Now, it looks like Ethereal does have Speedlings, and I'm not seeing, I think these are more Zerglings from Ethereal. Ethereal now putting down a second base, so now Ethereal is up on 3 bases, and he's starting to mine from Paramounts. Now he'll have to, I think he can transfer the minerals from Paramount to his own base. That does require a little bit of, essentially, micromanagement on his part. Zergling battle here. The Queen is probably going to push this in katsukilla's favor, but I am lying. I don't know what I'm talking about. And the Zerglings are coming in and hitting the drones. This is a huge game for Ethereal here, able to take out katsukilla or just bring him down to his knees. Spinecrawler coming up for him. Zerglings backing off. Ooh, morphing into Banelings, all of them all at once. That's a huge gamble on Ethereal's part. These Zerglings are trying to kill him down. The Banelings, now don't forget, when the Banelings are actually pretty strong while they're sitting here. Oh, Ethereal should have just canceled that. Not sure why he did that. A whole nother batch of Zerglings coming from Ethereal. So he's got his opponents back on 2 base, although Salazo is up to layer tech and starting to pump out roaches. So now Ethereal's going to have to change what his strategy is, because these roaches can take a lot of damage from these Zerglings. Those Zerglings are much more mobile and he'll be able to counterattack, but if his opponents are able to pool their roaches together into a single army. That's kind of what I was talking about before about, you know, the skill, the challenge of 2 versus 2 is getting you to pull your two armies together. And in this case, it's going to be pretty tricky for Salazo and katsukilla to work together. Players that meet in the online ladder, I'm assuming this is on the ladder, so these are two random people playing together, don't often share control and have a hard time coordinating their units together. Banelings don't do very much damage against roaches. Now Ethereal able to hold this off because he is closer to his home base, so he can reinforce much faster than his opponents. And they are back on 2.5 bases, and Ethereal is up to 3. He's not mining that much from Paramount's base, but I think at this point he would have to send money to Paramount to have him build units. I have been in 2 versus 2 games where my partner left, and it's pretty weird. One time I was playing with Zerg and Protoss, and each player had their own resource bank. It was just kind of the strange thing. Okay, trying to use the panning controls to follow these Zerglings across the map. Okay, if it's not making you seasick, it's making me seasick. Okay, so it looks like Ethereal's going to try to come in and stop this expansion by Salazo and keep them essentially on fewer expansions than himself, although that this expansion over here by Paramount really isn't doing very much for Ethereal. It looks like a couple of Banelings coming down from katsukilla. Using those on a couple of Zerglings from Ethereal, it looks like it's going to be a pretty even match. Zergling and a couple of Banelings wandering in the back here, but these roaches are going to scare everybody off from Ethereal back to his own base. Now, this is an interesting part about this game, is that there's a lot of vision by both players, both sides, with all of these overlords overlords and most of the units being put on the ground. Now I wish I could just reach over here and grab that income tag. Look at the income of Ethereal. It's about even with his opponents, 1,000 to about 400, and some of that is he is on the double base and he is able to pull his units together and act in tandem essentially with himself. And Salazo coming up, trying to put some pressure on with these roaches. This queen going to take most of the damage, and these zerglings are going to be able to trap these roaches where they are, so they won't be able to retreat. Not sure what happened. There are a couple banelings in there, and these backup roaches from Salazo are going to be able to push Ethereal back into the front of his base, but not sure they're going to do the pressure to keep him in there. I think they're just trying to get it contained so they can set up the third base. Ethereal pushing out with those zerglings once again. Going to try to pull up the unit's lost tab so we can see what's going on here. So Ethereal doing a pretty good job. Look at the amount of resources that have been lost by his opponents, and Ethereal's the blue, so he's been able to keep up with the damage on his two opponents, keeping them in check. They are on 2.5 bases here once again. And wow, 2 versus 2 is just a lot to keep track of. So we've got Evolution Chamber researching the first set of armor, and Ethereal starting to drone up and put down Spire. I think that's going to be a pretty crucial difference. If his opponents do not have any anti-air, I do not see any spore crawlers. I only see queens at the base, so if Ethereal's able to bring in just a handful of Mutalisks, he should be able to shut this game down and bring this to an amazing close, given that his partner left earlier in the game. But as I said before, part of the challenge of 2 versus 2 is that coordination between 2 players. So this is one reason why the CSL goes through some effort to prevent players from having one player leave early on in the game, because that is an advantage. Oh, wow, a lot of those zerglings being killed by a couple of really good baneling hits, and Ethereal building 4 Mutalisks back at his base. Let's see if he has a bunch already. He's already got a small flock of 7 already, now sending those out. There's no anti-air over here, and they are stopping to kill an Overlord, which completely reveals their case, but hopefully trying to supply block his opponents. I can't really see. It looks like they are very close to being supply blocked. Oh, and what timing. Katsukilla is trying to put down his expansion base, and these Mutalisks are going to come in and do a ton of damage because they're only queens for anti-air, and that, I think, is going to be all she wrote from both these players. Evolution Chamber almost done for Katsukilla, and I'm not... Where are those Mutalisks? They must be doing damage somewhere. They're not doing damage anywhere. I'm making everybody dizzy with all this non-panning action. Here come the Mutalisks into Katsukilla's base. 1 Spore Crawler up, Evolution Chamber down, a bunch of Spore Crawlers going up inside the mineral line, trying to keep these Mutalisks off with the Queen. Not quite sure what they're focusing on. Looks like they're going to go for the drones. That would be my choice of things to kill, and these Spore Crawlers are all going to pop together, so he needs to get out of there before they pop, and there they go, and he is out of there. Excellent move by Ethereal. Now going to be able to use those Mutalisks to keep his opponents on the run. Roach is coming out from Salazo, and they're going to be intercepted by these Mutalisks. Mutalisks going to be able to attack them with impunity, since roaches cannot attack air units. Creep starting to come out from our 2 players on the right-hand side, and these Zerglings going to be able to slow down these roaches. Not sure that that's that important, but with the aid of these Mutalisks focusing fire and having some area of effect with those, what is that, the glaive attack or something like that, those Mutalisks able to do quite a bit of damage. Defensive bailing by Katsukilla, holding down the entire base all by himself. A couple of spine crawlers down for defense, so these Zerglings don't have complete free reign, but able to keep poking in and out and putting on some pressure. Won't be able to take down any of these creep tumors until we get some vision, and that is likely not to happen for the Zerg player. Looking back on the production tab, we can see a bunch of Zerglings being built by Salazo. Not sure where those... Oh, those must be built in the main. So Ethereal going to have a hard time putting pressure here, except that there's not a lot of anti-air. Just a couple of spore crawlers here, so he should be able to do a terrible amount of damage to Salazo's base, and that'll bring his opponents back to a 1-1 situation. Salazo's bringing those Zerglings all the way across the map, trying to put some counter pressure on Ethereal with 5 Mutalisks back at his base, and Ethereal up to a 3rd base, so he's up to 3 bases. Salazo needs to put pressure back here and do some serious economic damage, but with these spine crawlers and these Mutalisks and Zerglings coming in to reinforce, and these Mutalisks coming home to fight, I'm not sure he's going to be able to really do that. He was able to push Ethereal back, but I believe, let's try to check out that unit counting station. He has 14 drones. It looks like they must be all at the 2nd base where there's a bunch of spore crawlers. Ethereal able to clean up that that attack, but now building a ton of Banelings and a pretty good Mutalisk flock coming up on the upper left-hand side. Looks like he's going to be able to go in for the kill here. So you've got essentially Mutalisk Baneling going to be able to clean this up. And this is essentially kind of mid-game Zerg versus Zerg. And these Mutalisks are going to be able to come in here. And even though there's a lot of Spore Crawlers, there's just too many Mutalisks here. They're going to be able to take out all the anti-air surgically, one piece at a time, and you can even see the little glaive attack bouncing between the different targets in this main. And the Banelings have run into the mineral line of the expansion. He's just trying to take out one player at a time. These queens are just not going to be able to keep up with the attack, and oh, that was a huge waste there. All of those Banelings being used on that Spine Crawler. He must have selected them and pressed X to explode them all at once, even though they weren't attacking anything. It's kind of a waste there, but he has done a terrible amount of damage to Katsukilla's mineral line. If we take up the units tab, we can see that Ethereal is up to 71 drones compared to 21 and 1 and 0 of his opponent's. Katsukilla has left, and so has Salazo, and Ethereal has pulled off that win. Wow, GG. Wow, so Ethereal was right. That was a crazy game. I had no idea where that game was going. I hadn't seen it. This was the first time I'd ever seen it, and so that was very interesting indeed. Now, Zerg versus Zerg, the mirror matchup by itself is pretty amazing, or pretty interesting, just the mirror matchup, but you know, having a double mirror matchup, Zerg, 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 totally crazy. So you could see at the beginning where Salazo and Katsukilla had a pretty good tandem between them. They both went for that early spawning pool. They both focused their armies on the same opponent, and so they were able to pull their army together to attack a single opponent who was isolated by himself. Now, of course, that brings up the other strategy for 2 versus 2, which Dana had mentioned, and that is to have one player essentially be the sacrificial player. One player is basically assigned to be the player to try to die as slow as possible, giving the second player the ability to tech up or to gain an economic advantage, usually to tech up. So in this case, it just gave Ethereal just enough time to have enough defenses to hold off that initial push from Katsukilla and Salazo, who had to sacrifice economy in order to do that early attack, because you saw them going for that very early spawning pool, both of them. So excellent game by Ethereal, and thanks for sending that in. And GosuDad signing out, and don't forget to check out my blog, GosuDad.blogspot.com, as well as my Twitter @GosuDad, and we'll see you guys next time as we head into Season 6 of the Blizzard Online Ladder. 10 games in Season 6. GosuDad signing off. We'll see you guys later.